Hey everyone, how is everyone doing today? Welcome to Behind the Scenes. Every Thursday, I host an episode of either Behind the Scenes or Transformation Time. My name is Diana Lizarazo, and today's guest speaker is Angie Pettyjohn. On Behind the Scenes, our guest speakers share their experiences with you. They help you by sharing their experiences on the real estate projects they've worked on in the past. So we'll get to deep dive into what the project was about, what the numbers were like, and what the problems were that they encountered, how they solved them, and if it was a new problem, what they would do differently in the future. So I find this topic always very exciting because everyone has a unique story and we all love to learn from other people's experiences. So let me just check and see if Angie is here. Yes, she is. Hey, Angie.
Hey, Diane. I
How are, how
good.
are
I'm
you?
in the dark here. Give me 2 seconds.
No problem, no problem.
I don't know what happened here. All of a sudden, all my lights went out.
Good timing, right?
Yeah. Sorry about that. That's a little bit better?
For some reason, I see like a black screen again. So I think we're just gonna go with it because
Yeah.
when I sent the replay, it seemed to be fine. So I
Yeah.
think that maybe it must be something with my phone.
Yeah. Yeah. And this time I promise I won't be playing with my hair thinking that I was off camera.
Hey, we got to see the real you.
Yeah, that's it. That's fine. I guess we all play with our hair, right?
Exactly, exactly. So let's get started. Just give the viewers a little bit, tell the viewers a little bit about yourself.
Sure, and thank you, Diana, for having me on again. It's a great pleasure of mine, and an area that I'd like to grow and improve on is speaking and doing these podcasts. So thank you very much. So a little bit about myself. I am a mortgage broker by trade. I've been a broker now for just over 13 years. As a real estate investor, I started my journey more as a passive investor, not an active investor. So I do work now with both the passive investors and the active. But my journey began strictly as a passive investor. So my husband and I thought at the time it'd be a great idea to start investing in using some of our cash that we've put aside and HELOC and RSP. And it was all great when it was great, and then the wheels fell off on the projects, and we ended up losing our money. So that was not a fun experience at all. It was actually pretty devastating. So now myself as a broker, what I've learned about that, I now teach on incorporating and becoming your own. You have to mitigate your own risks, right? Don't take anybody's word for it. So that was one of my key learnings in all of that. I don't know if you want me to continue on of my learnings, or if you have any questions.
Yeah, let's just get started with, so you said, so you had started passively lending. So what type of passive lending did you get into?
Yeah, we did mostly pre-construction type of projects. So the first few definitely they paid out, right? And then I believe the builder became a little over leveraged, and one project backlogged another, and we were multiple people all on title. So the whole slew of us ended up just going down with the ship. So um, now when we lend, we still continue to lend. You know, we've recovered, thankfully. And we've recovered firstly because we diversified. We didn't put all our eggs in one basket. We knew enough not to do that. But we also recovered with time, and that's the beauty with real estate, right? We now recognize that when we're going in on a project, we will only go in if we're the sole investors. So first mortgages for us that's where our appetite is. We don't even go into second place it's just, for us, it's just not worth the risk at my age. Again, it's mitigating risk. So I'm now a passive investor. I'm at a certain level in my investing career, let's call it, and I don't have the ability to recover. I don't have that time to recover the funds if things go awry. But before even getting there, we know better now, right? We are the bank. So we've created our own lending guidelines. So geographically, we don't intend on going any further than, there's properties that we will go to Sudbury, let's say, but we won't leave Ontario. We're only go to 80% loan to value and in first position. Again, mitigating risk. We want to be able to drive to these locations. We want to see them. And then, there's a whole bunch of questions with respect to the borrowers, right? What are their experience? What do they need the money for, right? And then most importantly, what is their exit strategy? So that was another thing that we didn't know enough about way in our early years, was we didn't ask about the exit strategy. We just went along with it thinking, okay, well, this is going to give us our money back at some point. So being very, very clear on what is the exit strategy. So now as a broker, so that's me as an investor, a passive investor. So now when I sit down with my real estate investors, or those who are keen on or interested in becoming a private lender, very first thing we talk about is creating that criteria of like the bank. What is your lending guidelines? So geographically, where do you want to go to? What is the maximum loan to value you want to go to? What does your borrower look like? Do you want to do a first or a second mortgage? So when you're looking at the borrower, myself, my mortgage business now, we don't touch second mortgages for people who are in debt problems. We don't like to consolidate and put private mortgages on homes. Because again, with my experience as a mortgage broker, I've seen that those are the ones that tend to fall apart. The homeowner is emotionally invested in this home, and they're holding on to this home with dear life. And at the end, their exit strategy, which is, well, if you don't get your stuff together, well, then you have to sell their home. And 1 year later, a year goes by really, really fast. So if they don't get their stuff together, they have to sell. Well, I've discovered they don't want to sell. So then what do? They get back into private lending again, and renewing and fees. And so I call this private lending hell. And I don't want to participate as a broker. I will not participate in that kind of thing. So I'd rather say no to that homeowner once I've reviewed their documents, to say, look, this is good. You're going down a slippery path here. And my team and I have decided, we've made a business decision. We're not doing regular homeowners in private lending. So that's an idea of what you could do when you're thinking of being a lender yourself, right? What kind of borrower? I'm only doing, and then as well as an investor, I'm only doing real estate investor deals. So I understand their exit strategy. I understand what they're doing to the properties, how long they need the money for. Do they own their own home? So in case something goes awry with this property, then, I have access to their home as collateral. So really understanding the lending landscape as if I were a bank. Well, quite frankly, we are the bank in these instances, right?
Yeah. And it's a very
Yeah,
interesting point that you make actually, is that you're basically saying that a real estate investor, because it's more business focused, it sounds like you'd want to invest with them instead of a homeowner where it's more emotionally attached. And like that, if they get stuck in a cycle, they'll still be
yeah,
attached. Whereas a real estate investor that's actually running it as a business,
exactly.
they don't think in the sense of like they're attached. They're like they think more in a business sense, where it's like losses are I have to cut my losses and I have to move on.
Yeah, you got that bang on. And that's, one of our criteria is how experienced of a real estate investor are they too. So if someone's done something once, it's not necessarily, I won't necessarily not lend to it, but it doesn't check one of my boxes, which is experience of the real estate investor. um, and when you create these guidelines, it then keeps you on track yourself as a lender too. So if you hit off all your checklist, you're not you aren't becoming emotional in that deal. Um, for example, let's say someone has their money sitting around for a month and they're starting to get antsy because their money's sitting there doing nothing. Because let's face it, you're not making money when your money's at the bank, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's not a reason to want to deploy your funds immediately, right? You
Or
still have to,
sacrifice on those criterias.
don't sacrifice. So then when a broker, myself included, when I'm sending you a deal to review, you're not feeling emotional going, oh, bypass the appraisal. I know Angie, she'll be fine. No, stick to your checklist, and at the very least, after you've done that, listen to the gut, because the gut never strays you. It always keeps you in line.
100% agree. Yeah, those are all really great tips because it is actually very frustrating. And I think patience is always very hard sometimes, right? When your money's like sitting in the sidelines and there's just either something's going on in the economy, in the environment, and just the deals aren't coming in to invest in. And I've definitely felt those where it's just like I have to like pull away and just ignore a bit because it does get very frustrating when you're waiting for a deal and nothing is coming.
Yeah, yeah. And then we have to recognize also the market in which we're in right now.
Hmm.
There's just not a lot of deals to be had. And
Hmm.
that's okay. And that's okay for your money to be sitting and waiting. Right now, I'm
Hmm.
calling this period more capital preservation, right? Until we figure out what's going on with the market. And we're anticipating another increase in December. So the Bank of Canada probably they're probably going to increase it by a quarter point at the very least. So that brings
Hmm.
up another point, right? So if you're lending your money using your HELOC, is this a good time to use your HELOC? No,
Yeah. Hmm.
it's not. And if you've got money out there that you've lent it on, say 8 and 2, well, you're not making much money on it. So
100%.
truly understanding the market, understanding what it is that you're lending, and the source of funds. So as a HELOC, you have to understand that your risk is market fluctuation, and we haven't seen that in many many years. We're experienced 6 7 increases in the past 6 7 months, which will have a direct correlation to anybody who have used their HELOCs, unfortunately. But it's not the borrower's fault, right? It's just that's the source of funds that you've used for that particular project. And another reason why you want to make sure you diversify, maybe use RSPs in one project, use cash in another project, if that's available to you.
Hmm. So
Yeah.
I'm curious on the one that you lent on and you lost, that it was the same ones as the previous company, the same like developers
Yeah.
or the same, yeah. And
Yeah.
was it a very like how much as when you're getting into those kind of deals, because I think it was like a syndication you said, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So with a syndication, how much information do they actually give you? And like, how would you like if someone, or is that actually, because I know that in your sense, it probably this is why you went away from it, but um, if you were to go into a syndication again, what would you do differently to be able to,
Yeah.
or would you just never, or because it kind of sounded like also now that I think of it, that you probably wouldn't do it again.
No, that's my number one criteria. I'm the sole lender, period.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, I have more control at the end of the term. I have it's me. I'm the one saying whether I want to continue or not, to a point. I also understand that there's um, uh, times when the borrowers may need a little bit of time, maybe a month or two, but still at the end of 30 days before the end of the term, it is in my hands if I want to say to the borrower if I to extend another month or two.
Mhm.
Whereas in a syndication, it goes through administrator. The administrator then decides for the whole lot of investors um, whether to proceed with an extension or not. So what my learning is going in first position makes me feel more comfortable. I may decide on, a 20K or 30K or something like that into syndication, but definitely not go in with, 200K or whatever it was that we did. Not what I would do today.
Oh, okay, so you may do in the syndications, but in smaller amounts,
Yeah,
just in case. Okay, and
yeah.
so if you were to, so like, let's say you were to do it again in a smaller amount, um, what would you ask differently, or what would you, yeah, what would you do differently in those conversations to make yourself feel secure that this is a good investment?
Yeah, I would first and foremost make sure that the company that is offering it has been around for many years, not some new builder or new developer. You want to make sure there's like three or four of them that have been around for a very long time, and they've they're solid, right? So one of those businesses for sure. I would not, I would make sure of the phase at which the project is in. Is it just at the very beginning phase? Because that to me would mean my funds are there for the next 10 years. There's no easy way to go through that pre-construction phase at all. Um, yeah, and just if there's any red flags with the developer, do your due diligence, talk around before signing anything. There were a whack load of documents. I don't blame anybody who presented it to me at all. But the risks with lending is that you could lose all your money. And that would be the other thing. If anybody guarantees that you're going to get a return, then run for the hills.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure, I think in Canada it's actually illegal to guarantee anything.
Yeah, it is. It
So,
is.
so if they're saying guarantee, you're definitely right. Definitely run for the hills because they don't even know those basic laws. Then something's
That's
wrong.
that's right. And the only guarantee there is a GIC. So if you're comfortable, if you want to do a guaranteed investment, then you do a GIC. And most of us are not happy with the returns of GICs, right?
Hmm.
But not to say there's nothing wrong with a GIC. Again, diversification is key. You have to carve out a portion of your funds that you could lose. And that is a very uncomfortable feeling, but in the end, that's the truth about private lending, right? You could lose it. Do all your
Hmm.
mitigate your risks completely, and that's why you need your guidelines. That's why you need to work with a reputable broker who understands this side of the business. Make sure that they've done their due diligence on the lender, it's a lot more complicated, but there's nothing guaranteed.
Yeah, that's true. And so with the syndication, you said it was a pre-construction. How did they, just so like, people understand, at least
Yeah.
maybe one way of a syndication, like what kind of like what were they using the money for, or how did they structure their deal?
Yeah, the funds, so this was many years ago. So the funds were used for the soft costs of the project. So the project was, it was to take the project from infancy stage. So they've purchased it. Now they needed to get it serviced, so permitted and all that, which they needed funds for in order to get bank money, the construction financing. So there's a whole phase ahead of getting bank financing, which is where the funds belong to. So everyone was on title, but there were multiple people. And in the end, once construction came, the construction financer uh, ranked ahead of everybody. So if there were other rankings ahead of us, we just kept getting bumped down to eventually, the particular projects that we were in, we ended up in third and fourth position. So understanding that in a syndicate, again, the administrator has control, and you will postpone in ranking once the construction financer comes on board.
Oh wow, okay. I
Yeah.
didn't know that they could do that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Because like, Meridian, for example, who offers construction financing on these massive builds, they're not going in second to anybody,
hmm
right?
Yeah, no, I've been surprised that they let you go into like the administrator went into like third and fourth positions. I thought I was surprised about that.
Yeah,
How many
and that,
more people are in front?
well, see, I didn't really understand the rankings back then either, right?
Mhm.
And you read these things, and there had been exits prior to this, and like we wanted to have our money make money. That's was our goal, but again, we didn't have our list in front of us like we do now, and we have a checklist and go through it. We didn't have
Mhm.
that. So
Mhm.
yeah, it was not fun, that's for sure.
Yeah, that sounds quite the roller coaster ride of
Yeah.
emotions.
Yeah, yeah. And then, back then too, being an agent myself, like I just felt so dumb.
Mhm.
And that's the reason why I'm talking about it too, is that most people don't talk about the failures. They just talk about all
Mhm.
the grand, we made this money, we made that money, this is our profit. They don't talk about the times that they've fallen, and how many times they've fallen and gotten back up again. So
Mhm.
it's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's something that
No.
we learned. Um, we had to pick up our, I say my big girl pennies. I had to. I had to.
Mhm.
We had
Yeah,
to.
I think those are the best learning experiences, to be honest. Like, I think once that happens to you, you get this feeling of this will never happen again, and you put so many things into place because it's the more impactful like learning experience I notice, the more that I feel like it won't happen in the future because you just put all these things into place from everything you've learned from that
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how I carry myself into my business too. I'm not shy to say to somebody, no, we don't, we've decided not to offer second mortgages for homeowners. That's
Mhm.
my way of mitigating my risk for my whole business now. Just
Mhm.
and I let my lenders know that it's okay to say no to projects. And I may send out, five offerings to one lender, and it comes back and says no to all of them. That's okay. It's based on their,
Mhm. 100%. And
their
even just in the of its process and someone's asking for funding, that's
Yeah.
also something that I have zero interest in being involved. Because I'm like, if you couldn't do your numbers from the very beginning and you're asking for money in the middle of your project, I'm like, I don't want to be a part of that drama.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a key component of knowing your borrower, knowing the project. Have they been on time and on budget? How many times have they done this before? So if they've not been on time and on budget, then I would be running away from them as well.
Yeah. And what about actually just curious, because I actually don't know the difference, and I'm just curious if you know the difference, because what is the difference between a syndication and a MIC, or are they the same?
They're not the same. So a MIC is a mortgage incorporation where it is a pooled fund, but the mortgage administrator there decides on the property to lend to. Okay, a syndication and people and you're not on title when you're in a MIC, and the criteria to lend to a MIC is a lot or it's a lot more vigorous than it is for a syndication, for example. Okay, it's governed under the OSC there, the Ontario Securities Commission. A syndication is you're lending directly to the builder and you're on title of that. So if you were to look up title on that property, your name would come up there. Diana? Hi, did you freeze or did I?
I think it's mine. Although I went off the Wi-Fi now because I wasn't sure if it's my Wi-Fi because it's telling
Okay,
me Instagram paused. Sorry about that.
that's
Hopefully it won't
okay.
happen again.
Yeah, that's fine. The beauty of life.
Exactly. Okay, so that's interesting. Yeah, I thought they were different, but I wasn't sure. I thought a syndication was also a corporation too, but it's actually specifically individual people all on title, but together in like first position, for example.
Exactly. And each get proportional payment to what they lent. So if I lent 100K and you lent 200, so your payment would be proportionate to your 200, whereas mine would be to my 100.
Mm.
Yeah. A percentage. You get paid the percentage of the total.
And so that means that the developer in that case would be giving checks out to each individual person then to whatever their proportion is.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You would get your monthly payment based on what you lent.
But but in a syndication, there's still a person that administers and makes the decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So in that sense, they're both kind of the same. Like, because a MIC does the same thing, doesn't it? Like a
Yeah.
MIC, an administrator controls what they decide to do in a
Yeah.
project.
Yeah, but in the mixed situation, you as a lender, there's a different type of a criteria in order for you to be able to qualify as a lender there. You know, make 250K each year and perhaps, net worth of over 2 million, and then you could lend within the MIC, right?
Mm.
Whereas a syndication, back when we were doing it, the criteria was very minimal, and the entry point was only 30,000.
Mm.
Right? A MICK, you've got larger investors investing there.
Okay, yeah, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so that the administrator for the syndication, so was their specific strategy was to lend for soft costs? It sounds
Yeah,
like that was
yeah,
their strategy.
yeah. Most of the project was based on we're raising money for the soft costs in order to get it to construction costs. And that's why the postponement in ranking happened. Because as soon as they got their permits, they got the servicing of the roadways and all those things in a larger construct. We're talking a pretty large scale construction. Then the construction financer would come on board.
Mm. I find that interesting actually because, and how many years of experience do you know that that specific person have for putting the syndications together?
Yeah, my understanding, like if I recall correctly, it was about 7 to 8 years, 8 years before I joined on.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm surprised from that strategy. I would have assumed that the construction loan would have just overtaken and paid that off. I'm surprised that it just got pushed over because I've heard of, well, MICs,
Mm-hmm.
that that they they'll put the loans on, and then once the construction loan is ready, it actually pays out the owing money.
Right. And that could be another reason why this failed, because there was just postponement in the in your ranking once
Mm-hmm.
construction came on and not a payout.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting approach. Because I would also say that would probably deter me from going into something like that if it's that, once the construction loan gets in and I'm not at least paid out at least my initial
Yeah.
amount and maybe waiting for the profits afterwards. I wouldn't mind waiting for the profits afterwards, but if the initial amount didn't come out once the construction loan came in, I
Yeah.
feel like that would also kind of make
Yeah.
me nervous too.
Yeah, yeah. Like we were complete amateurs, right?
Hmm. Yeah, and and that's how we all learn is like either going through it because or you're hearing from it, right? And that's what I love about this show is, I'd rather hear about it and try to mitigate as much as I can.
Right? This is another reason why I do talk about it. It was a very embarrassing time. This is about 13 years ago or whenever it was. Very embarrassing time. But I've survived. I lived to tell the tale, and I'm providing some pretty valuable lessons to my newbie lenders now. It's like, look,
Hmm.
don't do what I did.
Hmm.
This is what I learned. This is why I'm telling you to create your lending guideline. And this is why I'm telling you don't be emotionally attached to any of the deals that come in. This is why I'm telling you don't be nervous if your money is sitting in your bank account for 1 month or 2 months. Make sure that the proper deal is coming across and that you completely understand it. And if you don't understand it, then it's best you don't sign on that dotted line.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
you, as a lender, you need to be the expert as the bank. Like you don't go to Scotiabank and they just lend anybody money, right? They have to become the experts in that particular deal. So they're asking for the appraisal because they're not visiting the house. They send out the professionals to get the appraisals. They're asking for everything under and their kitchen sink when it comes to income nowadays. It's because they're the experts, and we should take lessons from that. That the banks being like that is what saved the economy in 2008 and 2009, right? Let's
Hmm.
take lessons from that and be like that when we're looking at deals.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. Great advice. And actually,
yeah.
another question. curious again, just on how that a syndication works, is because I know you said that everyone goes on title. Is the person that administering, do they also put down money, or are they in there in a contractual sense? Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're not putting down any money. They're actually they're a mortgage administrator. So they're licensed to accept the funds and administer it to a developer.
Oh, so this is like a licensed individual that helps gather money
Yeah,
for
yeah,
developers.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, is
In
that like
this
an
case, as a
EMD?
syndicate. Like syndication has changed so much over the years. And like our brokerage, for example, Mortgage Alliance, they've drawn the line to say there's no syndications allowed. So you, me, and my husband, three of us can't even go on one deal. That's a syndication. Two or more people not related is a syndication. But back then there weren't these rules. There weren't the specific kind of administrator. So the whole FISRA, who governs mortgage brokers and insurance brokers, and that they've revamped how they look at syndications altogether. So if it does come your way, there's nothing wrong with it, right? There's nothing wrong with syndications. But if they come your way, there are some limitations now. I think it's something like only 60K a year. It can't be on pre-construction. So there's nothing to fear about that syndication. But my learnings from it was that I want to be in first. I don't want to be in second. There's
Definitely not fourth.
and definitely not third or fourth.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So interesting, actually, because you brought it up. I'm curious. Then, what are, so you did say some of the regulations they've added to make syndications, I guess, safer for people. Are there
Yeah.
any other ones that you'd like to share that now? How a syndication works?
Yeah, so again, I'm not an expert in syndication at all, especially because our mortgage brokerage, Mortgage Alliance, does not allow us to participate as a broker and offer them as a mortgage opportunity for people. Essentially, you cannot. It cannot be on pre-construction, so it has to be on a single residential home, and you can lend up to 60,000 on a 6-month period. So those are the two major ones, is that it can't be on pre-construction. Yeah.
Oh, oh, that's interesting. Uh, and so so my understanding is the reason why your company Alliance doesn't do it is because they don't have the license. Like it sounds like there's a specific separate license for this type of mortgage.
Yeah, no, the reason being with Mortgage Alliance is that my feel is it's again their business decision that it's a too high risk product for them to put on the shelf. There have been a lot of lawsuits over the years with syndication, and it's just again too many people on title and projects not completing on time, and they just are just steering away from offering that type of a product to any of our clients.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So it has nothing. So then you could, if they allowed it, you could
Yeah,
actually do it as a mortgage broker. So it's not a separate type of insurance or anything. Mortgage brokers do it. It's just like a
yeah,
niche to say, like you're
yeah,
niche in private lending.
yeah,
There are mortgage brokers that niche into syndications.
exactly. And there are specific companies that are offering syndications. There's nothing wrong with them whatsoever, and they're probably the ones that have like been around since the test from the beginning, and they're fine.
They
um
probably learned all their lessons.
they probably learned everything from the earlier pioneers, that's for sure. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with syndication. There's nothing wrong with syndication back then too. It's just, you know, the company became over leveraged over time, and then just things fell apart.
Yeah.
Right?
No, and it's always very interesting to know even just the different types, because like that there's so many different ways to put like to go on title,
Yeah.
and it's just one approach to being on title, and then just knowing the risks and the benefits and your criteria. So like anywhere you get to, it's all about what is your criteria, what's your appetite
That's
to get
it.
involved in something.
That's it. And diversification, right?
Hmm.
Don't put all your eggs all in one basket.
Hmm.
If you're planning on doing a syndication, and you know you're third on title or whatever it is, but the project is closing in 6 months and exiting, and you feel good about that, you have to know that at the end there are no guarantees, and you could lose your money. That nobody can guarantee that. So you have to understand that, and that's why I always say diversification is key in this.
100%. And when you say diversification, are you talking in real estate or in all types of investments?
I would say in all types. I have my financial planner understands our strategy. He understands that we like private lending, so he's not going to persuade me to do all mutual funds, right? And all, so he understands. I go to him with my needs, and he puts together a plan for that. So we've carved out a nice portion of the funds where we can use them for private lending still, but there's also, I diversified in other aspects,
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
safer. And again, my age will dictate something different for me than it would for you or someone younger.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's so many different factors that make us decide what we want, how we want to invest our money.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And private lending is not for everybody. It's not for the faint at heart. You got we say it's passive, but it's
Hmm.
really a little more active than giving your money to your financial planner and then they decide on what mutual fund to put it in, right? It is a little bit more active. You do need to follow up every 6 months, or even every 3 months. How's the project going? You have to have your hands in it a little bit.
And I would even say that it would be good to just understand how to analyze it yourself and understand by doing the analysis of the information you get, how even you would feel about it.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's your gut. At the end of it, you've done everything, and it may fit all your check boxes, but at the end you still don't have a good feeling about it, then you don't do it.
Hmm.
You walk away and you wait for something better.
Yeah,
It's
100%. I mean, there's always deals, right? It's just finding the right one for you.
there's always deals. Again, just
Mhm.
understanding, the property, and understanding the borrower and their needs and why they need the money and what their exit strategy is. Like, those are some key components here.
100%. And so any final tips that you would like to give to the viewers about your experience in syndications, or even your views of now, from what you've done in the past and like what you would do now?
Yeah, I think we just close out in saying that as a lender, you're in control, not the mortgage broker, for example. You're in control. Always develop that lending criteria, where and pinpoint where it is that you feel comfortable in lending, who your borrowers are, understand it all, trust the information that is being provided to you, but make sure you verify the information, and have a checklist of what your verification documents are going to be. And then in the end, if it quacks like a duck, it's most likely a duck. So, you know, trust your gut in things, do your due diligence. Google is your friend. There's so much you can find with Googling. You do need to become a little bit of an investigator yourself. So,
Mhm.
but there's some great deals out there. I love private lending, and my team, like I teach this all the time. So if anybody wants a call with me to go through this, how to develop this lending guideline, like reach out to me. I absolutely love this stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing. It was so informative and it shows that you know so much about it. You've definitely learned a lot from it and probably way more than you've expected.
Yeah, I have the scars.
Do you want to anywhere, where can the viewers contact you if they would like to get some more information?
So we're on Instagram at the Pettyjohn team. They can find me there, or you can email me at Angie@pjmortgages.com.
Awesome. Yeah, and you'll be linked to this. So if anyone wants to follow Angie, she'll be linked to this video and feel free to follow her if you really enjoy, want to learn more about private lending. If you like watching these shows, feel free to follow me also. So thank you so much, Angie, for coming on. It was so informative, and we're excited because you'll be our guest speaker at the networking event in January. So
Yes,
excited to hear
yes.
what you'll be sharing with us in January.
Thank you, Diana. We're very excited too.
Awesome. Bye, Angie. Bye,
Bye.
everyone. See everyone in the next episode. Bye.